I look at the situation, I think, well, why aren't the tech companies cracking down? I mean, I'm thinking 50 years from now, hopefully this is the end of the Trump era, but I'm guessing it's not, given, who's got the most popular shows on TV, Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro online, and these like extremists that are absolutely being boosted by tech companies. And 50 years from now, are we going to look back and say, okay, why didn't the Democrats do something about this? Because they were taking like a lot of their money, or there's always that like facilitation, right?
Well, there's different, Germany is one very particular thing. Italy is one particular thing. If we're seeing authoritarian creep here, and we're seeing facilitation happen in a number of different ways. I mean, you can look back at the way the Democrats in the 90s leaned into the Republican Southern strategy, thereby keeping white nationalism very much alive in both parties, failing to deal with the torture regime after the Iraq War, or the consequences of the financial crisis. All of that will be looked at as facilitation, as
that's neoliberalism, though. But Rosa Luxemburg famously warned, how the center left was partnering with the wrong guys, or not standing up to the rise of Nazi Hitler. Yeah. So is this our moment? Are we sitting here when Joe Biden says, are we going to look back and look at Joe Manchin and say, thanks, Joe Manchin?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, I think, I tweeted that the minute he started mumbling about compromising with Republicans. I mean, we absolutely need something like a massive New Deal, a Green New Deal, something that makes every American think that government is working for them. And rolls back this thought that government is this invisible thing that is really working is just corrupt and helping minorities. And then we've got to deal with racial injustice, so we don't have these constant the constant uprisings against massive police violence and the carceral state that then a demagogue can use in their demagogic law and order campaign and say, I'm going to bring you law and order, as Nixon did, and as we saw Trump try to do twice. Trump did twice. So we need to deal with all of those problems, and that will require a kind of massive rethinking, and no more self-dealing with the oligarchs. And the oligarchs at some point are going to say democracy harms us. I mean, many of them already have. Many of them who are funding Trump and Trumpism, and aspects of the Democratic Party, in case that doesn't work, they have no allegiance to democracy. They're going to, when you have massive inequality, you're going to need ever more beefed up security sources, ever more surveillance to prevent any kind of rebellion, and all of that leans into a fascist future.
I've learned about that from the Harry and Meghan interview. Massive surveillance, security is needed. Wow, inside the mind of basically a kingdom. I mean, it's I joke about it, but it's true. I mean, it's a colonial state. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we that's the other thing. This idea that somehow you couldn't get beyond, that you can get to the point where everyone is democratic. Democracy is a fantasy. Democracy is an ideal. Very few people have lived under democracy. No one probably has lived under an actual democracy. Mm-hmm. So democracy is an ideal. You see it all around you. We saw it all around us during the Trump era. Many people want a dictator. Many people want, Plato in the Republic, in his criticism of democracy, is that most people don't want freedom. They want a strong leader to worship. They want to chant, I love you. And so that will always be a portion of society. That's right. And they will always want something like a monarch.
It's so funny because I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, when I'm from New York and very familiar with Andrew Cuomo, and I remember the beginning of the pandemic, people, before it was as it moved into the Cuomo sexual thing, people were just worshiping him. And when I said it, being very familiar with Andrew Cuomo, I was I think it's because people want to feel in control, and he's channeling that control And now, now we've got Biden. So suddenly the things are sticking. The stories that have always been there, are sticking.
Cuomo always had this kind of authoritarian, strongman kind of character to him. It's that aspect of things is neither left nor right. And Cuomo had that. Cuomo had a kind of,
I'll take care of you, lady.
Right, exactly. And that's a successful political
and
way.
Kill your grandparents too, along the way.
Yeah. So that's, people are attracted to that as a form of rule. I think it's a dangerous form of rule. I think, maybe you could have a really good leader who employs that for propaganda purposes. But ultimately, you don't want to in a democracy to have, a person who is your charismatic leader. AOC is a charismatic leader, and she might be able to harness, frankly, some anti-democratic charismatic leadership into power that she would then use, I think, for the people. But ultimately, that's what she's not, obviously. I think it's very difficult in this kind of fascist machismo to do that with a woman, and you don't see AOC's leadership in any sense like that. But people want someone to worship, admire, and follow. That's what you saw with Andrew Cuomo this summer, when, without any good reason, people just, as you said,
it was like their therapy. Yeah,
therapy. It was therapy. It was. Leadership, because freedom. Because in time, when you become fearful, what an authoritarian leader wants you to do is become fearful, and when you become fearful, you feel like you need a strong leader. Right. And that's dangerous for democracy.
There was a leadership vacuum too. You do a lot of work around propaganda as well. And I'm curious are there I know this sounds, especially for our audience, we could probably identify right-wing propaganda and corporate propaganda as well as anybody, but it's gotten much more sophisticated. Can you kind of describe what the evolution of propaganda looks like now?
Well, I think to some extent, it hasn't gotten more sophisticated in that, so if you look at my book, my last book, my second to last book was called How Propaganda Works. My last book was called How Fascism Works. And How Fascism Works, I talk about how Hitler had this, there was a propaganda campaign about Black Senegalese soldiers occupying the Rhineland, the Black Horror on the Rhine. And it spread worldwide, let's save the poor German women from the occupying French army. And, 17,000 people gathered in Madison Square Garden in New York City to protest, the Black Horror on the Rhine. So in a sense, this kind of fear-mongering propaganda, the structure of fascist propaganda, which is what I'm looking at in that last book, the structure of fascist propaganda, they're here, they're going to destroy your family, they're going to take your women, you need a strong leader to protect your women, the real authentic people live in the countryside, the cities are diseased. It's remarkable the degree to which we are seeing the same tropes over and over and over again, sent to our iPhones more rapidly. But my job in the propaganda conferences I go to is to remind people that the structures we're seeing are familiar, just repackaged and sent more quickly.
There are propaganda conferences?
There are many propaganda conferences.
I love this. I want to go to, oh my gosh, Dorsey, our producer. We got to go to the next propaganda conference when they have one in real life. We've got to cover this. This is amazing. Sam Cedar covers torts. We cover propaganda. He says, yes. So you got to let us know. Keep us in the loop. What's the best propaganda conference? And we are on it. Jason Stanley, super interesting. Go check out his book. This is, who publishes your book? Hang on a second. Is it Verso?
Penguin
I apologize. There we go. It's How Fascism Works, the politics of us and them. You can go check it out at indiebound.org. We got that one up there right now. Go to a local place. Get rid of that Amazon addiction, because they're facilitating this. They're facilitators, the fascist state. It's so ironic that you can buy this stuff on Amazon anyways. They'll take it, I guess. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.